Autonomy. The freedom to behave however you choose, no matter how anti-demure it is. We sometimes don't realize the power of having autonomy, and in forgetting its power, we give manipulative people the opportunity to convince us to do anything. The increase in autonomy between childhood and adulthood is drastic, especially if you were sheltered as a child. And whilst we are constantly taught how to be responsible for ourselves, the power of our autonomy is almost never spoken about. So, what can we do to guard our autonomy such that no manipulative individuals could ever have the cheek to try and snatch it away from us? By the end of this, you'll have the answers. And at least if you don't, just be quiet and for the sake of my thing, Part 1. The what? What is the difference between autonomy and responsibility? We're taught how to be responsible in two main ways. One way is the responsibility to take care of your most basic needs. So obviously you need to know how to cook, you need to know how to clean, you need to be wary of your surroundings on the road, and you need to earn enough money to look after yourself in the first place, etc, etc, etc. And as a daughter, you even get the extra, make sure you know how to do this, that, and that other for your future husband, blah, 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 blah. If you know, you know. There's also consequential responsibility. We're taught to be aware of laws, rules, and we learn from childhood that our actions have consequences. Learning all these things is essential, don't get me wrong. However, understanding responsibility without understanding the power of your autonomy is like watching the post-credits of a Marvel movie without having watched the film itself. Autonomy comes before responsibility. Your decision to do or not to do, like the infamous to be or not to be quote from Shakespeare's Hamlet, is something that we're always responsible for, even if we're manipulated. Unfortunately, someone else's influence can get us into positions where we reap the consequential responsibility, even if it wasn't our idea to use our autonomy in that way. It's kind of like those criminal wrong place, wrong time cases where young people's lives get wasted behind bars, even if they're not necessarily involved, simply because they're following along with the wrong people. Responsibility comes after autonomy. And no matter how corrupted your autonomy is, unless in obviously extreme and unfortunate cases, the responsibility associated with it will be assigned to you. If people can manipulate our autonomy, we're vulnerable to being used like chess pieces on a board before being abandoned when we have to answer to the consequences of our actions. And no one wants to be that guy. Part 2. The why. Why is it so hard to have a grasp over your sense of autonomy? Your first taste of true autonomy is usually when you move out of your parents' house to go to university or something. And as someone who's at this stage, I've observed two extremes: going crazy and getting controlled. Going crazy is self-explanatory. You have no clue what to do with yourself, so you're doing everything that you have the freedom to do. And sometimes you don't even want to do certain things, but you're just doing it because the option's there. And I've especially seen this with people who grew up in stricter households, especially if they weren't sneaking out behind their parents' back to do anything before being handed keys to freedom. For these kinds of people, there's no ease in process into autonomy, God bless their souls. They've built up the anticipation towards having freedom, like how a balloon blows up and bursts when the pressure's too much. And sometimes they're only doing crazy nonsense things because someone sees their autonomy and has their hand up their nyash like a ventriloquist, or however you say that word. Getting controlled is the other extreme. You may find yourself going along with things of more dominant people around you. And at certain points, the common sense documents in your brain's file explorer are thrown into the recycling bin. You don't know how to safeguard your autonomy, and consequentially, you hand that power over to the world. Upon realizing this, you're left frantically trying to get back what you've given away, which leaves you acting like the youngest cousin in the family playing piggy in the middle with their older cousins. If you have a weak relationship with your sense of autonomy and you're not aware of it, the harder it is to reclaim it. Once these things go on for long enough, you'll see manipulation or even peer pressure as normal behavior. Part 3. The how. How do you keep the manipulators away? Having firm boundaries, and I'm talking solid rock, impenetrable boundaries, and an understanding of the ways in which manipulative people try to take your autonomy away are your main weapons. Even the devil himself came as an angel of light, so when malicious people are trying to steal your autonomy away from you, It's not a straight up, oh, you need to do this, you need to do that. They'll craftily strip away all your autonomy little by little, and before you know it, nothing's left. You have no clothes on. Well, maybe not. No, in fact, let me not explain myself. In terms of boundaries, make them stricter than they are, because it's always better to have stronger boundaries than weaker ones. If you have to write them down, write them down. If you have to reflect on different situations in which you've let someone slide left, right on your boundaries, replay those scenes in your head and really understand what it is you would and would not let slide had this happened again. A lack of certainty in yourself and your boundaries distracts you enough for manipulators to sneak in and decide your life for you. Understanding how manipulators work makes you nonchalant towards any scheme of wickedness that is trying to fight against you because you already see through it. In the 48 Laws of Power by Robert Greene, there's a chapter called Conceal Your Intentions. And it says that if they have no clue what you're up to, they cannot prepare a defense. But on the contrary, if they have no clue what you're up to, it's hard to prepare a successful attack. Never explicitly let people know your boundaries, because they'll be able to see the target that they're attacking and keep aiming at it in hopes of breaking it down. And always be alert of when they strike a target. You can't just be letting stuff slide left and right because you're not a water park. You need to let people know and not say go. I'm practicing my patois so that my cousins don't laugh at me when I go to Jamaica next year. Okay. Moving on. If people continue to attempt at picking your boundaries apart after warnings, it's no longer a mistake. It's pure manipulation. You need to recognize it for what it is and dispose of them from your life accordingly. Also, I just wanted to note, knowing how manipulators move is solely to understand what is happening if someone is trying you. Don't be out here using it to try and play with others, because God will humble you so quick. He can humble you before you say ABC, serious. Anyways, to conclude, autonomy is something that we exercise daily. If we aren't firm in our identities and boundaries, it's easy for someone else to see the cracks in our ability to make decisions and use it to their own advantage. Likewise, if you stand on business when it comes to your boundaries and identity, manipulators will dip because they know that it's a wasted effort. Holding yourself in a way such that no one even thinks that they could try and manipulate you in this life, as well as understanding the behaviors of malicious people, is useful in defending yourself. Hopefully, any questions that you had have been answered, and if not, there's always a comment section. Anyways, until next Friday, Alicia, the adult.